Failures to Launch and Boomerang Kids: Contemporary Determinants of Leaving and Returning to the Parental Home by Scott J. South and Lele or Lele. So basically in this article, they're talking about the determinants. They're going to be examining and talking about the determinants of leaving and returning home amongst the youth. So they start off with talking about how one of the most prominent changes in the structure and composition of U.S. households over recent years has been a sharp increase in the percentage of young adults, residing in the parental home. They say that the percentage of young American adults residing in the parent's home has increased markedly over recent years. And they say that despite this, there is very little known about how social demographic, life course, and parental characteristics facilitate or impede leaving or returning home. He also says that there is also very little known about the contemporary dynamics and determinants of young adults' prosperity to move out and especially back to the parental home. He says that previous research on this subject has used percentage of young adults living at home, usually derived from the decennial census or cross-sectional surveys. And he says that through these data methods, they are incapable of because the previous research is using these data methods. The research is incapable of identifying the events in young adults' life course that may precipitate either home leaving or home returning, and that through these data methods they also can't examine how characteristics of parental home and parent-child social relationships influence the timing at which children leave, or once having left, the likelihood that they return to the parental home. He says that the study and the analysis in this article goes beyond the research of prior studies and of prior literature about home leaving and home returning, because unlike that prior research and previous literature, it focuses and mainly talks about the historical period bracketing around the Great Recession, which may have altered young adults' residential decision making by considering a much broader array of potential determinants of leaving and returning home, including many not heretofore examined, by taking measures of these influences from both young adults and directly from the parents of these young adults, and by estimating parallel models of both leaving and returning home. So he's basically here talking about this literature review. Compared to all the other articles I've read, is a little bit different and set up differently. But basically, what he's saying is that the research out there is very limited, and there's barely any research on this topic. But the research that is out there has used specific data methods that have limited their ability to analyze the information properly. And he says that they have been focusing on the wrong things, and this has led to a limitation and a huge gap in the literature of this subject. So now he goes on to his data and methods, and basically in this study, they use longitudinal data from the panel study of income dynamics of transition into adulthood survey to examine the determinants of leaving and returning home among youth who turned 18 between 2005 and 2011. So basically, this panel study of income dynamics transition into adulthood survey, the PSID-TA, collects data from all children aged 18 and older who participate in the PSID's Child Development Supplement, and whose families have participated in the PSID's original survey in 2011. The first interviews for this data was conducted in 2005, with subsequent waves in 2007, 2009, and 2011. The response rate for 2011 wave was about 92%, and in this analysis, they used data from the 2005 and the 2011 waves, which were when the respondents were between the ages of 18 and 26. And also um, in this study, the sample includes all of the PSID-TA respondents who were interviewed in at least two of the waves, and during the span from 2005 to 2011. And lastly, in this analysis, it includes two dependent variables, which happen to be the timing of moving out of the parental home and the timing of moving back to the parental home. So now to the results. In this research, they had three major findings. The first one was that a broad array of characteristics, statuses, and events shaped young adults' decision to leave and/or return to the parental home. Critical events such as entering college and forming a romantic union encouraged home leaving, while other events such as graduating from college and dissolving a partnership precipitate moving back to the parental home. They also found that youth who reported being emotionally close to their mothers are less likely to leave home and more likely to return. And they also found that young adults who receive greater instrumental support from their parents leave home earlier than youth who don't. So basically, they found that young adults are less likely to move out and more likely to return to the household that contain other adult siblings, and that they are more likely to return to the household when a parent is in poor health. They also found a very big finding that presumably random events of physical or sexual victimization increases the risk of leaving the parental home and increases the risk of moving back. And these results that I just mentioned all suggest that a comprehensive explanation for why and when young adults leave or return to the parental home go beyond the simplistic focus on coincident life course transitions and the financial wherewithal to establish and maintain an independent household. So basically, youth instrumental and emotional connections to the family of origin must also be considered. So basically, he says that he lists all these major findings that fall under the first major finding that was found in this article, and he says that basically these findings show that you can't, when studying the determinants of the refilling of the empty nest and of co-residency within young adults and a parent, you have to analyze using more narrow factors and not use any simplistic focuses like previous research has done. So then he says that he found that the parentality of diverse array of mobility-related motivations, opportunities, and constraints reflected in these results are likely confound attempts to develop a unified and cohesive theory of home leaving and home returning. So basically, these results have found that a theory about home leaving and home returning, which he's about to mention now. So in the second conclusion, this is what he was talking about previously, they found that factors that drive young adults out of the parental home are not always the same as the factors that drive them back. So basically what that means is that the things that are causing these kids and young adults to leave the parental home aren't always, sometimes they are, but they're not always the reasons the opposite of that isn't always the reason that specific child is coming back. And for example, being in let's say a romantic partnership or relationship, and the assumption of personal financial responsibility to one's mother prolongs home leaving. So these things cause someone to stay in the home longer. but it also on the other side of it, it also deters home returning. And emotional closeness to one's mother prolongs home leaving, and encourages home returning. But some factors influence the risk of moving in only one direction. So basically, the ones that I just listed above, like romantic partnership and financial obligation and responsibility, go both ways. They cause the leaving, but then the opposite of them also cause the returning. But they found that wasn't always the case. So, for example, parenthood and receiving financial help from family appear to increase the risk of moving out, but have no bearing on the risk of moving back. And having a parent in poor physical health and being the victim of sexual assault increase the risk of moving back, but do not appear to influence the risk of moving out. And theories of moving out and theories of moving back, due to the findings that I just mentioned, may need to be given different weight to the factors that propel these movements. Lastly, the major finding that they found was that the timing of leaving home and the risk of moving back can be easily explained by trends in young adults' likelihood of experiencing various employment relation transitions, their socioeconomic status, or other measured poverty. So basically what this means is that, like for example, during and immediately after the Great Recession, which lasted from 2007 to 2009, young adults delayed their home leaving and experienced an increased risk of moving back home. And this is because the trends of this time, it became normal to live with your parents, so it wasn't such a social this it wasn't like a social something that was frowned upon of socially to live with your parents at this time. So there was an increase of co-residency. So secular trends in the timing of home leaving and home returning stem as much from changing attitudes and norms regarding the desirability and attractiveness of living in the parental home as from trends in young adults' ability to establish and maintain an independent household. So basically, this is all talking about how socially things that at the time are normative or normal can affect how the increase or decrease of children leaving or returning to the parental home. And that was basically the last major finding. And that those three things, the fact of there being specific factors that go beyond simplistic focuses about leaving and returning to the home, and the fact that these factors aren't the factors that lead someone to move out aren't always related to the factors that lead someone to move back in, and the whole idea of social normal trends and timing having an impact on the numbers of co-residency. These were the three major findings of this article.